Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone, and welcome to Moral Compass 101. We thank God for another chance to come and get edified together. And a quick recap on our last topic. We talked about mental slavery, where we said the indoctrination of mental slavery happens through two avenues: the social stratification and social conditioning. We went ahead to say that unlike imprisonment, which follows a litigation process for freedom, mental slavery is a personal responsibility towards freedom. Having said that, I'll please request you to comment so that we can interact, subscribe to get edified, like and share to disseminate knowledge. Thank you so much as you do that. Just like I said last time, mental slavery, or who owns your mind, is a very profound topic, and today we shall deal with the part 2 of the topic. And our subtopic today will be, are you what the world has told you to be? Are you what the world has told you to be? Who you are, that is your authentic self, versus who the world have told you to be, that's the insidious control, is an abstruse and a subtle process through which you internalize and normalize societal expectations and disregard your objective defined reason for your existence. If you have been following me of late, you have found that all these topics are coming back to self-identity or to finding your purpose. Meaning, this is the fundamental aspect of humanity, that if you don't know your purpose, your life will be subjected to all kind of manipulation and anarchy. Unfortunately, this normality is a societal construct rather than an inherent truth. It's an expectation that have through the lapse of time been fabricated by the societal elites and the dynasties in order to uphold stability, where every person must at all times operate within the confinements and the threshold of their expectations. That's just a self-explanatory point where we have times without number said that mental slavery, or being subjected to mental slavery, is a case of standardization, societal standardization, normalization of who decides what is normal and what's not. It's extremely unfortunate, how normancy and social conditioning have, through the passing of time, deeply been enrooted in our collective psyche to a point of total laxity that we no longer question it. Yes, this is true, because this process is very subtle, to a point that we don't even sometimes realize that we are just conforming to the social norms. Okay, our self-defeating mindset have indeed subjected us to become a chapter or two in their stories and their narratives. These are the elites and the ruling class. Indeed, it's extremely regrettable that hitherto 21st century, a vast majority of people still dwell inside a system that secretly, silently, and subtly shape their thoughts, desires, and identity to a point of societal normancy and conformity while still holding an indisputable belief that the system is totally genuine when their belief is actually a white lie that wasn't a choice to embrace from the beginning. Yes, since our childhood, we have been told this is how, what to act, and we are expected not to question. This unfortunately has shaped our belief, our thinking, and everything that we do. Societal stratification, self-aggrandizement, and manufactured fear are the elites and the dynasties' doctrine of necessity, or doctrine or defense of necessity, towards manipulation of their victims of impoverishment in the society, meaning that we having been already subjected to their narrative of societal norms and standardization. We are poor, we are victims, to them we are victims, and because we are living a mediocre life, hence their ability to manipulate us. That notwithstanding, the problem is not only the elite and the dynasties telling you what you cannot do, it's also you telling yourself what you cannot do. In other words, it's also believing in their own mythomania. Mythomania is a pathological lie of what they have told you that you cannot do. That's mental slavery. Please note, the worst lie ever told is the self-defeating and incapability lie that you have told yourself through the lapse of time. Unfortunately, your belief in this lie is what have times without number held you in mediocrity. That you are part and a person of believing that you cannot do it, of believing in the social norms, in the societal norms, that you cannot make it. Who told you don't have the ability to do that? That's a question that you have to start asking yourself this day. However, although your acquiescence to the elites and the dynasties' manufactured fear and societal standardization of normacy instigates a self-defeating mindset and a biased belief in your own lie of incapability that ensues mental slavery, their doctrine of necessity tactic is neither a justifiable excuse nor a defense mechanism for manipulation and control, hence a dire need to resist. That the information you are getting today will help you realize and understand that you have all what it takes to forge your own destiny without being dictated by the social norms that has been prevalent since times immemorial. In your dire quest for freedom from mental slavery, you must first and foremost understand that your mind is a battlefield of success versus failure, optimism versus pessimism, victory versus defeat, and winning versus losing, and that the choice is all yours. That's self-explanatory, that failure or success starts in your mind. As you make your pivotal life-changing decision, kindly be informed that anything that your mind perceives impossible is totally unattainable in your life. Anything that your mind perceives impossible is totally unattainable in your life. If your mind perceives anything with a defeat mindset, your willpower, courage, confidence, zeal, and avidity forthwith surrenders and concedes defeat. Fortunately, God has given you the ability to resist mental slavery and the free will to choose your destiny. The fact that human mind is malleable instigates a possibility that through a dynamic shift that will effectuate a fundamental change in the way you think and approach life challenges, you can free yourself from the deep-rooted indoctrination of mental slavery that has for the longest held you into social structural constraints. That's what I call SSC, social structural constraints. You have the ability to do that. This occurrence will contrive an optimistic perspective that will obliterate your self-defeating mindset and subsequently free you from mental slavery. In the words of Alvin Tover, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot run, unlearn, and relearn. Hence, a dire quest to do those three things. What you have already learned, and today you have come to realize it has been all along been a lie. You have to unlearn it and relearn new information that will help you overcome your days of mental slavery. Hence, are you valiant enough to approach the elite and the dynasties, the manipulators and the naysayers, plus the world at large, with a Job's mentality? Noting that Job was a man who fully understood his assignment and was equally conversant in his potential with immense certainty, these are the words that he directed to his disparaging friends in Job 13, verses 2 and verses 5. And I will read, "What you know, I also know. I'm not inferior to you. Yet I desire to speak to the Almighty and argue my case before God. You cover your ignorance with lies. You are worthless physicians. The wisest thing you can do is to keep quiet and listen to my argument." These are the words that Job directed to his three friends who had come to pay him visit when he was going through challenges and ailments. But instead of consoling with him, they started blaming him, telling him that he had done something against God and he deserved to be punished. But fortunately, Job knew his relationship with God, and he well knew that he had not done anything contrary to their words, and that's why he reprimanded them by telling them that they are just worthless physicians. In closing, I will direct you to Apostle Paul, who rendered a verdict on matters mental slavery in two isolated cases. The first case, in his epistle to the Christian church in Corinth, Paul poses this extremely intriguing question: were you born a slave? Do not let that worry you. But if you can win your freedom, by all means, take the opportunity. This is Paul encouraging us to take the opportunity that truth comes into our ears and free ourselves from mental slavery. His words are recorded in 1 Corinthians chapter number 7 and verses 21. I have no iota of doubt that to a vast majority of us, the issue of mental slavery is not only a mind-boggling revelation, it's also a concealed truth that will instigate your long-awaited opportunity towards mental freedom. Through my self-conviction, I totally believe that the chains that buckle our mind are stronger than the shackles that once fastened our reins. Fortunately, in his letter to Christian church in Philip, Paul assures you of your constitutive ability to do all things. This he does by saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. These words are recorded in Philippians chapter number 4 and verses 13. In the very words of Apostle John, in the 8th chapter and verses 32 of his gospel, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. In this entire topic, I've elucidated the whole truth and nothing but the truth about your days, weeks, months, or even years of your self-defeating mindset that have persistently continued to hold you in mediocrity while still believing in your own lie of incapability and answering to the quotidian clarion call of societal conditioning that have through the lapse of time constrained your integrity, intellectual acuity, and have robbed you your freedom to a point of conforming to the societal norms, and now you are a convict of the unjustifiable cause, namely societal conditioning and societal stratifications. We live in a system that does not credit or does not appreciate meritocracy, but a system that operates under who you know rather than what you know. Hence, a depiction of systemic corruption. But, we can break this system because it's unjustifiable. Nonetheless, the decisive decision to free yourself from mental slavery is all yours. As you pensively contemplate on your decision, please be adequately informed that nothing spreaded has ever been achieved except by those who dared to believe that something inside them is superior to circumstances. Why is this? Therefore, the elites and the dynasties audacity to a supremacy mindset, they are persistent, persuasive, and pervasive mythomania, or their parochial lying, must never ever compel you to abrogate your responsibility and moral authority of defying the unjustifiable cause of manipulation and control. I'll repeat that statement. The elites and the dynasties' audacity to supremacy mindset, their persistence, persuasive, and pervasive mythomania must never ever compel you to abrogate your responsibility and moral authority of defying the unjustifiable cause of manipulation and control. Why should their pathological lies not make you to become subject to their manipulation? Reason being, he who owns your mind owns you, and he who owns you controls you, and he who controls you determines your life and your livelihood, and also your destiny. So, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Until next time, please stay safe. Blessings and shalom.